Welcome to Roll for Insight, the D&D podcast where we dive into the game, the lore, and the internet's favorite arguments. Grab your dice and your character sheet, and let's roll for insight. Hello, welcome to Roll for Insight. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the origin feat Tough out of the 2024 D&D Player's Handbook. So, Tough is an origin feat that is available at character creation by choosing the Farmer origin, or by choosing it as a feat when you level up. Also, if you're using a background or origin from an older D&D version that doesn't provide a feat, you can take this as an origin feat of your choice. So in this episode, we'll be covering the description of the origin feat from the Player's Handbook, we'll review some gameplay uses, plus some benefits and limitations of the feat, we'll pull some ideas and opinions from the internet, and last we'll end with some fun fact information about the feat. Okay, first topic, the origin feat Tough is available to the Farmer origin. Your hit point maximum increases by an amount equal to twice your character level when you gain this feat. Whenever you gain a character level thereafter, your hit point maximum increases by an additional 2 hit points. Now, a few clarifications on the description here. Tough is one of the simplest feats mechanically, but it can be easy to misunderstand the long-term impact of that hit point gain. So when you gain this feat, you immediately have your hit point maximum increased by twice your current character level. So if you're taking this at level 1, you get plus 2 hit points. At level 5, it's plus 10 hit points. Level 10, plus 20 hit points. Level 20 is plus 40 hit points. So this scaling means the later you take it, the bigger the immediate jump. However, there is ongoing scaling as well. So after you take the feat, every time you gain a level, you gain an additional 2 hit points. So this means that technically, whether you take it at the start or at the end, you'll end up with the same total gained number of hit points. But the later you take it, the larger the initial boost. Now, this is probably the simplest origin feat because Tough doesn't require any activation, there's no resource cost, you don't need concentration, there's no positioning requirements. It simply increases your maximum hit points permanently. And that makes it very clean and very simple as a feat choice that is beginner friendly. Now, when we're looking at gameplay uses, Tough is purely defensive, but defense does play a bigger role than some people give it credit for. So if we're looking at combat uses, more hit points means you survive longer, you stay conscious longer, you're harder to drop in a single round, and you're less likely to be knocked out by burst damage. And that can be very valuable in a few different situations, whether you're a frontliner or trying to act as a tank by pulling enemy focus, or if your DM runs high damage encounters or likes to throw out the big heavy hitters, it gives you another buffer to making mistakes during your play. Having a larger health pool can also have a lot of impacts during your adventuring day because having more hit points means you typically need fewer healing spells and you can survive longer between rests by stretching out your resources. It's okay to be down a few more hit points when you have a higher maximum. So in campaigns where the short and long rests are limited or healing isn't going to be as abundant, then Tough becomes a lot more valuable. Now the question is always who benefits the most from the Tough feat. Now, I've seen arguments on both ends of the spectrum, saying that Tough is designed for the frontline fighters and the paladins, especially the barbarians, who can multiply the benefit of hit points through their resistance features. But I've also seen the opposite, that Tough is designed for specifically the squishier backline casters and the characters who don't have that larger hit point pools. So it is likely more campaign dependent, and it depends on the quantity of physical attacks and the play style at your table. So there are lots of benefits to Tough because it's always relevant since it scales naturally and it's really easy to understand. So it is extremely beginner friendly. And it can also help that it doesn't require any action economy because especially for new players, there are so many rules to remember. But limitations-wise, expectation setting again is always important because Tough doesn't increase your armor class, it doesn't prevent damage, doesn't give you resistance, it doesn't improve saves, and it doesn't do anything to stop things like crowd control or status effects or instant death mechanics. It simply increases your hit point pool, and it can lose some relative impact if healing is really abundant in your campaign, either from spells or potions, or if your adventuring days are short and you have lots of available short and long rests. Now, looking at some discussion board topics on the internet, Tough has a pretty long-standing reputation online. It's one of those feats where you don't get to do anything with it. It doesn't add new abilities, it's not flashy, it doesn't add effects, and it just adds hit points. And a lot of players prefer feats that feel more active or give extra action options. But on the other side, tough is also one of the best feats, and that is a very strong opinion some people have because a lot of players argue that hit points is the most universal defense stat that you can take, and surviving one extra hit can change an entire encounter. So in higher difficulty campaigns, tough is often very highly rated. And the difference usually comes down to things like your encounter lethality. Is your DM willing to kill you as a character? And then things like rest frequency and healing resources are also going to play in whether you'll get as much value out of the tough origin feat. Now, the other big conversation that happens is taking tough versus increasing your constitution. So this comparison comes up pretty often because increasing constitution raises your hit points as well, and it improves constitution saving throws. While tough gives you more raw hit points, but there's no save improvement. So the better option depends really heavily upon your build, and at later levels you might be choosing between tough and the +2 constitution, but that's not your choice as an origin feat. Now, the last segment here is the fun fact information on the tough feat. So, tough has existed in multiple editions of D&D in various forms. In earlier editions like 3.5, it was a flat +3 to hit points, and it didn't scale, but you could take it repeatedly. And generally, tough was looked at as a weaker feat than in the 5th edition. So 5e simplified the durability design of tough by keeping bounded accuracy pretty tight, as in the attack rolls, armor class, DCs. They're all kept pretty tight within a bounded range regardless of level. And that lets feats like tough increase survivability without breaking the game. So where this leaves us on the origin feat tough, it's not exciting. It's not going to change how you play your character or your turn most of the time. And it's not going to win you style points like with Tavern Brawler. But tough does keep you standing, and it can absolutely prevent a TPK. Well, that's it for this session of Roll for Insight. Thanks for listening, and thank you to all our supporters on patreon.com/rollforinsightpodcast. And we will see you next time.